This is the way it feels to move through summer in Lululemon. Iconic Align softness without the front seam. For our smoothest look and feel ever, summer won't know what hit it. Stretch your limits in the non-stop flexibility of the new Lululemon Align No-Line Pant in select stores and at Lululemon.com.
We
are
cultivate.
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 Cultivate. We are cultivate.
Hello and welcome to Ye Olde Crime, where we discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear. I'm your host, Lindsay Valenti, and with me is my sister and co-host, Maddie Stengel.
Hello.
Hello there.
Happy, hot, humid, gross day.
Happy Monday.
Mm-hmm.
It is the first episode of the month, which means it is time for us to once again thank our Buy Me a Coffee sustainers.
Yay!
So thank you to Charlie, Elizabeth, Sarah, Cheryl, Mariam, and June.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. And if you would like to also be a sustainer, you can go on buymeacoffee.com/Ye Olde Crime podcast. I can't remember. One of those. And you can leave a one-time or monthly donation. We do appreciate it. It goes right back into paying for the podcast, like towards
It does.
our hosting bills and all that fun stuff. So thank
Mm-hmm.
you. And this week is going to be a bit of a long episode. So we're just going to jump right into it. We are going to be going back to a period in history that we haven't discussed in a while.
Okay.
With the story of Calamity Jane.
Oh my gosh. Somebody who is so famous, but for what?
Mm-hmm.
We gonna find out.
Information was pulled from the following sources: a 2025 Legends of America article by Kathy Weiser, 2025 Sheridan Media article by C. Vanoy, 2024 Cowboys and Indians magazine article by James D. Laird, a 2023 SDPB article by the South Dakota Historical Society Press, 2022 History Hit article by Lucy Davidson, 2020 biography article, Britannica, Deadwood article by Deadwood History Incorporated, Factinate article by Sammy Tran, 3 Find a Grave listings, and Wikipedia.
Nice.
Thank you to Carrie Ann for her research assistance on this episode, and links to all of these articles will be included in the show notes. Want to be social with us? You can see pics from this week's episode, bonus content, and funny memes on X at Ye Olde Crime Pod, or on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, and YouTube at Ye Olde Crime Podcast.
Speaking of YouTube, we have a special playlist just for our Can You Crack the Cramp Word segments with our guest podcasters to see who can correctly guess the meaning of some obscure Victorian slang terms. If that's your thing, check it out.
Now, if you know anything about the Wild West in America, you've likely heard about Wild Bill Hickok.
Mm-hmm.
One name that's associated with Wild Bill is Calamity Jane. But who she was and how much of her story is fact versus fiction?
Will we ever truly know?
Yeah. Spoiler alert, no.
Spoiler alert, nah.
And certainly not today. Certainly not in this episode. Which, to be fair, lots of books have been written on her, and so please take my research into this woman's story with a grain of salt. I did the best that I could.
It's a drop in the bucket of who she is.
Mm-hmm. Martha Jane Canary was born on May 1st, 1852 in Princeton, Missouri.
Like May 1st, too? Like, what a cool... Like, baby canary born on May Day?
Mm-hmm.
So cute.
She was the oldest child of farmers Robert Wilson Canary and Charlotte M. Berg Canary. Her mother was 15 years younger than her father when they got married on June 14th, 1855, in Polk County, Iowa,
Yeah, sounds about right.
3 years after Martha's birth. So she was 3 at the time that they got married. And it was noted that her father had a gambling problem.
Oof.
We love that.
So many strikes, all within the first few sentences of this story.
From the first paragraph, yep.
First paragraph's real rough for
Yep.
Jane, baby Jane.
Her younger siblings were Lena Pauline, who was born in 1859, Silas, who was born in 1857, Elijah, born in 1862, and Isabel, born in 1863. In many places, Martha is listed as having 5 siblings, and in others, there is no death date for her brother Silas and youngest sister Isabel, so I'm unsure if they survived
Okay.
infancy or not. Unclear.
Yeah, kind of a gamble during that time anyway, too.
Yeah.
It was very easy to be lost to history during that time for whatever reason.
Well, and also especially if you were not a person of means. So,
Which, if you come from a farming home and your father has a gambling problem,
yeah.
odds aren't super great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Martha's grandfather, James Canary, who had been living with them, passed away in 1862 without leaving a will.
Uh-oh.
Following his death, Robert was sued by members of his family who charged that he owed money to the family estate. He was ordered to appear in court in 1863. However, it is also noted that he likely took his family out of the state before his court date in 1863.
Ye old run for it.
Yep.
RUNNOFT.
Yeah. According to Robert's Find a Grave listing, in an article published in the December 31st, 1864 edition of the Montana Post, his children were found begging for aid, and his wife was described as, quote, a woman of the lowest grade, end quote.
Rude.
Mm-hmm. The couple was often described as being petty criminals, unsavory, and often in dire financial straits.
Yeah, but you don't have to be mean about it.
I know. In 1865, the family packed up to travel by wagon train from Missouri to the coal fields of Virginia City, Montana.
That's so rough.
I feel like they had already traveled by that point, but a lot of places, it was between 63 and 65 that they supposedly left Missouri. So it's unclear.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah, so it's unclear exactly if they went somewhere for a little bit and then to kind of
maybe
wait.
they started out
And then they kind of waited for the heat to die down regarding the lawsuit before they were like, you know what? Yeah, maybe we should start new somewhere else. And then they decided to continue on.
That makes sense. Where they'd kind of test it out because it cost a lot of money to leave too. So you have to factor that in, especially if you may or may not have, is it 5 children? 4 children?
They had 5 children.
Yeah.
The following year, in 1866, Martha's mother, Charlotte, passed away from pneumonia in Blackfoot, Montana, at the age of 26.
Holy smokes.
Leaving her father, Robert, to care for her and her siblings.
That's not going to end well. And how old was Jane at this time? She was little.
She would have been 12, 13.
She's going to be mom now, isn't she? At 12.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fuck.
In the spring of 1866, the family relocated to Salt Lake City, Utah, where Robert reportedly began farming a 40-acre or 16-hectare plot of land that summer. Around a year later, he passed away at the age of 42, leaving Martha, now 15, to raise her younger sisters on her own and younger brother. At this point, Lena was 8 and Elijah was 5. If they did survive infancy, her brother Silas would have been 9 and her sister Isabel would have been 3.
You know, with those two not having a notice, I wonder if they were like wards of the state or something, or maybe they had to go to an orphanage, or I don't know.
Yeah.
If both the two youngest were separated, that to me means maybe they got sick and died, or maybe they were.
So her oldest brother was Silas, and that was the one who didn't have a death date. And then her youngest sister was the other one that didn't have a death date.
But weren't they the two youngest siblings?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Then never mind. I thought it was like the two youngest.
But even still, it's
That's
why the
true.
second oldest and the youngest. Like, it's just weird. But
Yeah. Something's not right there.
the timeline becomes a little blurry. But Martha took her siblings to Fort Bridger in the Wyoming Territory the following year before moving on to Piedmont, where she worked odd jobs to provide for the family.
I wonder, would like going to a fort kind of be like subsidized housing almost?
Kinda.
Kind of? Like, I mean, you're probably like, it's like a working camp almost, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Like a labor camp.
At this time, she took up shooting and writing, which would play a big part in the rest of her life.
Mm-hmm.
She would travel along the Union Pacific Railroad to work at the construction camps, take up work at military posts, and work at gold camps across the Wyoming Territory. Various accounts from this time note that Martha was, quote unquote, extremely attractive and, quote, a pretty dark eyed girl, end quote.
Nice. That probably would be kind of scary. Being
Yeah,
pretty and young and really good at working like hard labor jobs and military
yeah.
like worker outposts. That would be really scary. I can't imagine what it would be like.
In 1874, at the age of 22, Martha moved the family to Fort Russell in the Wyoming Territory, where she worked both as a scout and as a part-time sex worker at the Fort Laramie 3-mile hog ranch.
Yeah. I bet that would be good money,
It
especially if
would.
she was pretty.
Mm-hmm. It was around this time, but kind of closer to 1870, so like a few years before this, that her
Okay.
quote-unquote work as a scout was for General Custer.
Oh. Okay.
He was currently fighting against the Apaches in Arizona, and if the
Mm-hmm.
stories are to be believed, Martha donned the clothes of a soldier to join the campaign.
That would make sense because Custer wouldn't be able to be seen with a young woman just kind of willy nilly.
Mm-hmm.
He would have been too high profile
Yep.
in that way. Too respected,
Yeah.
high ranking.
And unlike Mulan, Martha wasn't very good at hiding her identity. And although General Custer wasn't pleased with the deception, her experience as a writer allowed her to stay on as a scout.
So he had no idea initially.
Initially, he didn't.
Huh. Okay.
And again, take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah, like, but did he? No.
It was at this time that she received her infamous nickname of Calamity Jane, after she rescued her post commander, Captain Egan, during an Indian attack outside Fort Russell.
Hmm.
However, it has been disputed how she got the name. Some say that she earned it during her time as a sex worker, because men who offended her would be, quote, courting calamity, end quote.
Yeah, because I bet she could fight back.
Oh yeah, I bet she totally could.
Mm-hmm.
Martha herself recounts the events as her finding Captain Egan wounded on his horse during the attack at Goose Creek in Wyoming. And as he was about to fall off his mount, she rode over and hauled him onto her horse, transporting him safely back to the outpost. As a result,
Nice.
Captain Egan reportedly said, quote, "I name you Calamity Jane, the heroine of the plains," end quote.
Cute. I bet that felt really good with her, like, having a really hard life and probably being more known as a sex worker during the time than like her heroics.
Fun fact. Years later, this account would be proven false, as letters from Captain Egan's wife would attest that the Indian attack and rescue in question never happened.
Oh no!
It begins.
Okay, so
The following year, in 1875, Martha's famed beauty had transformed into leathery and tanned skin from exposure to the sun and wind as she traveled with the Newton Jenny party into the Black Hills of South Dakota.
okay, so they just didn't like people tan. Got it.
No, she'd become kind of aged from the elements. We'll just say that. Like
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
that makes sense. It's rough as is currently. I cannot imagine how rough and how many years you would lose off your life trying to exist in that area.
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, yeah, you're gonna look a little older, my friend.
The military escorted scientific expedition had set out to map the area, and the rough travel had drastically altered Martha's appearance. She became muscular and lost her femininity, dressing more like her male counterparts, rarely washing, leaving her hair stringy and unkempt.
Yeah, who's she trying to impress? And like being surrounded by men like that all the time. Being gross was a safety mechanism.
Yeah, during her travels from camp to camp, Martha was noted as a loud and profane woman who was often drunk, thus cementing her infamy.
Yeah. That's
Like,
probably quite literally how she survived.
at one point, Martha was sent north to join General Miles, Terry, and Custer at the Bighorn River. Later, she had to swim across the Platte River before traveling another 90 miles to the outpost, arriving soaked and shivering. Although she became deathly ill, she spent 2 weeks in the hospital and was able to pull through.
Insane. Because swimming that river probably took forever, too.
I'm sure.
Could you imagine going against the current?
Martha also participated in General Crook's expedition in 1876, dressing in soldier uniforms to avoid detection as a woman among the men. According to John W. Captain Jack Crawford, who had served under Captain Egan, he noted that she was, quote, never employed as a scout by General Crook, who gave her no recognition whatever, except to order her out of camp when he discovered she was a camp follower, end quote.
Rude. She was never one of us. Got it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a dick about it.
Yeah. One of the wagon trains she joined was that of James Butler Wild Bill Hickok and Charlie Utter in Fort Laramie, Wyoming, who were traveling to the Black Hills during its gold rush era.
Ooh. So I bet it was a huge party. Pretty lucrative. At the time.
In 1876, Martha settled in Deadwood, South Dakota, the home of Wild Bill, whom she was drawn to because of his life as a cowboy and his larger-than-life personality.
I'm sure.
And due to their love of exaggeration and heavy drinking, the pair quickly became fast friends.
2 peas in a pod.
Yep, pretty much. After arriving at Deadwood, Martha took up work as a Pony Express rider, transporting mail the 50 miles between Deadwood and Custer.
Nice. Would it be weird living in a town named after you?
Yeah.
That'd be really weird to me.
It would be weird.
Or like even visiting it.
Yeah.
Because he had to still be alive during that time.
He was still alive, I think. When did Custer die?
That's so weird.
Oh, he died in June 25th of 1876, so he could have been dead at that point in time.
Oh.
Yes, he would have been dead at that point.
Okay, so maybe it wasn't weird for him. Maybe it was just weird for them, going to a town named after their dead friend.
Yeah.
That would be weird.
That would be weird. I mean, like, oh, remember that guy?
Remember that place where he used to live? Oh, that sucks.
Womp womp.
War, am I right?
Wild Bill was shot and killed by Jack McCall during a poker game on August 2nd, 1876, in the Nuttall and Mann's 66 Saloon in Deadwood. Bill, who had been shot execution style, was holding a pair of eights and a pair of aces at the time, and the hand he played would forever be known as the dead man's hand.
Nice.
On August 3rd, the entire population of the Gulch turned out for Wild Bill's funeral procession all the way to quote-unquote Boot Hill. Later that day, a jury was selected for the trial of Jack McCall, who claimed he had shot Bill as an act of vengeance for killing his brother back in Abilene, Kansas. Jack also made a point of saying that he would do it again if given the chance. 2 hours later, a not guilty verdict was reached.
Dang. I bet a lot of people kind of hated him, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Being loud, known for gambling and cheating, drinking.
Yeah. Martha claimed that 3 years prior, in 1873, she had married Bill in the Montana Territory and that he had fathered a child with her.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. That child, Jean H. Hickok, was born on September 25th, 1873, and adopted by Jim O'Neill and his wife. Put a pin in that, because we'll come back to that. And since no marriage or birth certificates have been found to back up these claims, it's entirely possible that their romantic entanglement was completely fabricated by Martha, who had been obsessed with Bill, and it's likely he was not, in fact, Jean's father.
Yeah.
Jack's trial, so the guy that shot him, was found to have no legal bearing at the time because Deadwood was an Indian territory. Jack was later tracked down and arrested in Laramie, Wyoming on August 29th, 1876, where he was charged with murder and promptly transported to Yankton, South Dakota to stand trial.
Rough.
He was then found guilty and hanged in the spring of 1877 for the murder of Wild Bill Hickok.
Rough. So he thought he got away with it, but no.
Yeah. Another story that came out following his death was that Martha had tracked down Jack McCall herself with a meat cleaver and had him lynched, when it's historically agreed that he was hanged as a result of a court sentence, not mob justice.
But the mob justice fits the Wild Bill Calamity Jane story. Yes. So I bet you absolutely that was the story she told, whether it was true or not.
Yep. Even after Bill's death, Martha continued to live in Deadwood, where she would tend to those afflicted during the smallpox epidemic of 1876. So 1876 was a really busy year for Martha.
It was a rough year for Martha. Are you kidding?
Even Doc Babcock noted that Martha surprised many with her nursing ability, and, quote, she'd swear to beat hell at them, the children, but it was a tender kind of cussin', end quote.
Yeah, because she raised her siblings.
Yeah.
It makes sense that, like, when the going gets tough, she figures it out. She had to do that her whole life.
Mm-hmm. At some point around here, Martha visited the East Lynn Opera House in the company of her friend Arkansas Tom, both of whom were a bit in their cups before the performance.
That doesn't sound right.
During the performance, Martha let loose a stream of tobacco juice directed at the lead of the play, with the gunk hitting her in the eye and leaking down onto her dress.
That's crazy.
All chaos broke loose when Arkansas Tom then proceeded to draw his pistols and shoot out all the lamps.
Okay, not to be outdone, apparently.
The pair left the theater, and it would be the last time that they would be seen together, as the following day Tom was killed during a bank holdup.
Sounds about right. Somebody who lives like that does not live long.
Martha helped rescue a stagecoach from an Indian attack in 1877, taking over the reins after its driver was killed during the skirmish as a result of an arrow to the back. Even amidst the chaos, she was able to transport it and its 6 passengers to their final destination of Deadwood safely.
I thought she was like, that's my house. I can just take you guys back. It's cool.
She's like, I live there. It's fine.
Yeah, you guys can like park in the back. It's cool. I got like
Mm-hmm.
a barn and everything. It's fine.
Martha traveled to Bear Butte Creek in the fall of 1877 outside of Sturgis. The 7th Cavalry built Fort Meade there, and the following year she went to Rapid City to try her hand at prospecting with no success. By the spring of
Get in line.
1879, she was driving mule trains between Fort Pierre and Sturgis.
Man, she's like the woman with a million jobs.
Mm-hmm. In the late 1870s, Martha garnered the attention of several magazine writers, with one dime novel writer dubbing her, quote, the white devil of the Yellowstone, end quote.
No.
In 1881, at the age of 29, Martha purchased a ranch near Miles City, Montana, on the Yellowstone River.
Hold on. Can we just. She's still not even 30 years old yet.
Yeah.
And all of
Yeah.
this life has happened. I just want to call that out.
Mm-hmm.
That she has lived the equivalent of like most people's lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
At least one or two people's lifetimes. And like half of hers.
Yeah.
Cool. So she's buying property as a woman under the age of 30 in the United States.
Yep.
This is a huge deal. Okay, continue.
Yep. So at the age of 29, Martha purchased a ranch near Miles City, Montana, on the Yellowstone River, where she also operated an inn. Martha traveled to California in 1883 and then to Texas in 1884. In El Paso, Martha met a Texan man named Clinton Burke, whom she married in August of 1885.
Nice.
The couple had a daughter on October 28, 1887, and they relocated to Boulder, Colorado, where they ran a hotel until 1893. Over the next 3 years, the couple would travel through several western states, including Wyoming, Montana, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and South Dakota. And throughout their journeys, Martha would try to sell the story of her life to anyone willing to hear it.
I bet. Because it's a cool life. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
a cool fucking life. I love that she just, like, ended up marrying a man owning a ranch and just, like, hanging out.
Yep. Fun fact, Martha never learned to read or write.
Yeah, when would she have time?
Yeah.
Quite literally, when would she have time? Because she wasn't even allowed to be a kid before she was a mom.
Yep.
To 4.
So she remained illiterate throughout her life. And as
Makes
a
sense.
result, the only accounts we have of her life are those she chose to share with the person transcribing her story.
Makes sense.
She did publish an autobiography called, quote, Life and Adventures of Calamity Jane by herself, end quote, in 1896, thanks to a ghostwriter. Still, the short work is so full of exaggeration and a lack of basic facts that it reads more like a work of fiction than anything factual.
Well, yeah, because she is doing it from old school storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Like by the fire and when you're going to bed at night when you needed fuel for your dreams. Like
Mm-hmm.
that makes so much sense that her own account would be insane. Because I
Mm-hmm.
bet you she doesn't even remember what the truth actually is at that point, you know?
And I'll note it later, but she was a heavy drinker. So who knows how
Yeah.
much of it is like almost like a fever dream type of thing and how much of it is actual fact, because I'm sure a lot of it was just almost like the drunk ramblings of somebody who, like you said, can't really remember their own story.
Yeah. But they know it upset a lot of people, so you can kind of glean
Yep.
context clues and like depending on who saw it and whether or not they were pissed or thrilled or whatever about it colors it too.
Mm-hmm. In 1893, at the age of 41, Martha joined Buffalo Bill Cody's Wild West show, where she acted as a storyteller, showcasing her writing and sharpshooting skills. The show would travel from Minneapolis to Chicago, then on to St. Louis and Kansas City. Regardless of whatever city she visited, Martha would manage to overindulge in drink and end up getting fired.
In every city?
Pretty much. Yeah, she would get
I love
fired,
that for her.
and then they'd be like, actually, we do
Just
kind of
kidding. You
want you
should
to be
come
part of the
back.
show. And then she'd get drunk again, and then they're like, God damn it.
God damn it,
They're like,
Jane.
but we still need you.
Mhm. That's funny.
It is
You
pretty
know,
funny.
after a while, she just did it because she knew she could get away with it.
Yeah. 3 years later, in 1896, she joined the Cone and Middleton Dime Museum, where she performed on stage in buckskins and shared elaborate and likely embellished details about her life and adventures. One such story was that she had served under the famous Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer several times, as I kind of mentioned
Oh,
earlier.
sure. Yeah.
In 1900, a newspaper editor discovered Martha in a brothel, and he nursed her back to health. At this point in her life, she was suffering from depression and had become an alcoholic.
Yeah. I mean, I doubt she could go on the adventures that she used to.
hmm
And with her alcoholism probably being super bad. Yeah. I mean,
hmm In 1901, at the age of 49, Martha continued to perform when she took part in the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, New York. But just as in the past, once she consumed alcohol, things took a turn.
mm,
In the case of the exposition, she made the Irish policemen dance jigs as a result of her roaring guns, like she would fire at their feet, and then proceeded to stumble down the street, cursing throughout the town.
cool.
She was essentially kind of run out of town by the police.
Yeah, I bet. Because if there's one Irish policeman, there's probably a few more.
hmm
It
And they
might be
wouldn't have
an
liked that.
Irish community that's
Yeah.
used to being kicked around a lot. Yeah, good luck with that,
It's
Martha.
unclear where she spent most of 1902 until November, where, according to the Gazette, quote, without any apparent reason, save that suggested by a mind more or less disordered by too free indulgence in her favorite tipple, Martha armed herself with a hatchet and invaded Yagan Brothers' store and attempted to put an end to the existence of one of the young ladies employed in the dry goods department, end quote.
Oh, okay. With a hatchet.
With a hatchet.
Hmm.
The paper went on to say that the incident may have been one of her famous practical jokes.
What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's nothing funny about going after somebody in a hatchet in a store, but
Yeah.
sure.
Which the owners of the dry goods store did not find particularly funny.
Yeah, don't blame him.
However, they chose not to press charges, and Martha was free to go until she committed a similar offense at another store in Billings, which resulted in her arrest.
Oh my god, you guys are so serious. It was just, I wasn't gonna like completely cut her head off. I was just gonna like, give her a cool scar so she could say Calamity Jane
I
messed her
was,
up. LOL. Like what?
yeah, I was just gonna scare her a little bit. Calm
Yeah,
down.
it's fine. Nobody needs all 10 fingers, all right?
At some point during her incarceration, Martha reported that she was feeling poorly, so a doctor had her transported to St. Vincent's Hospital in Billings, where for some time she lay, quote, prostrated with rheumatism, end quote.
That's somebody probably detoxing from alcohol, which
hmm
can kill you super fast.
In December of that year, Martha was released from a jail in Billings, Montana, which she labeled as a, quote, tenderfoot town, end quote.
Sure. Martha's so hard, man.
There were reports that Martha was on a whiskey bender in Sheridan, Wyoming, and a conductor on the Burlington Railroad named Dick J. Nelson recalled her boarding the train after a friend had paid her fare from Billings to Deadwood. She was traveling with all that she owned packed in a small suitcase, and she rode with the men in the smoking car, where she stayed in a state of, quote, boozed up, end quote, bliss, but didn't cause a fuss, which was unusual for her.
That's so funny.
Another passenger on the train took up a collection to ensure her meals were paid for in the dining car.
Well, that's nice enough for them to like worry about her eating while she's
Yep.
drinking.
Martha returned to Deadwood, South Dakota in 1903, where she took on the role of cook and housekeeper for Madame Dora Dufran, who owned a brothel. And she's like a famous brothel owner
Okay.
at this point in time.
So funny. All I use a cook and a cleaner. Like, dang.
Yep. Upon
Rough.
her return to Deadwood, the Deadwood Evening Independent wrote an article titled, quote, "Calamity Jane Returns," end quote,
Oh no, run.
in which she was described as wearing a brown derby as she disembarked from the train. In the article, it mentioned her legendary exploits during the gold rush, and that, quote, "many a helpless old-timer owes her gratitude," end quote, as they were, quote, "never turned from her door hungry as long as she had food," end quote.
It sounds like she was quite the generous, loving person. It's just drugs do crazy things, man.
Mm-hmm. It went on to describe her appearance as, quote, "Jane bears the marks of the strenuous life which in former days made her the leading Western scout. But with the exception of wrinkles and the former robust physique having changed to a noticeable slender figure, she is the same Jane as of old," end quote.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you don't just like stop being fiery.
Yeah. Another local paper, the Deadwood Daily Pioneer, stated that, quote, "age is telling on her, and her hair is becoming streaked with gray, and she is not the same vivacious Jane of years agone," end quote.
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. I bet you don't look that cute either. Damn.
I mean, this is like 20
Like,
years after, or almost 20 years after she, had her crazy 1876 year.
yeah,
So,
like when she stepped on the scene and had to like live life harshly,
mhm,
and then when you're an alcoholic, it sure as hell ages you.
it catches up with you.
It ages you far more than sun can, tell you what.
Mhm. Martha took up her life of travel once more in January, but halfway through her trip, she traveled to Belfort with her daughter, where she planned to, quote, "lead a quiet life, earn her living in an honorable manner, and spend the balance of her days in peace," end quote.
She die tomorrow? Die the next day?
No.
Okay. It's like, I'm gonna live peacefully. Dies.
She wanted to get sober and do right by her daughter. Like
That's really
she
sweet.
she tried to pull together like a collection to kind of help send her to school.
I wonder how old her daughter was at this time.
I don't know. So she said it said that she was like trying to raise money for her to go to college. So I'm assuming like
Okay.
teenager,
So,
perhaps.
yeah, so she's just trying to make amends for probably not being in her life at all.
Mm-hmm. Madame Dufran noted that for 6 weeks, Martha stuck true to her word and was sober until, quote, "the old urge overcame her good resolutions," end quote.
I bet.
After receiving her paycheck, Martha went out to purchase a few calico aprons and other essentials, including underwear and items to complement her 2 calico dresses. So when she wasn't performing, she dressed in dresses like a normal woman.
Yeah.
She wasn't always wearing the buckskin suits
She
and
didn't
all.
need to. She didn't
Yeah.
need to make herself bulkier or look frumpy. She could wear what she wanted and do what she wanted.
Mhm.
She could be a lady.
Mhm. However, when she didn't show up to make breakfast the following day, they knew that Calamity had returned to her old ways. After a 5-day
Aw.
spree during which she donned her old buckskin suit, Martha returned to the brothel to ask for her job back.
Mm.
Madame Dufran hired her back immediately as she was an excellent cook.
Dang, and probably she must have also been like a decent human being when she wasn't drinking because the amount
Mhm.
of chances she gets, the amount of people like genuinely taking care of her when she's
Mhm.
not in this state, and the amount of people tolerating her when
Mhm.
she's not okay
Mhm.
means to me that like she was an okay person.
Martha left Belfort in March of 1903 and spent the spring working at a ranch. She was seen visiting friends in Rapid City on March 20th and was invited to participate in the Carnival and Stockmen's Association meeting scheduled for April. After falling ill, Martha traveled back to Deadwood, promising to return the following month for the festival. She was next spotted in Sundance, Wyoming, riding in a hack. She hit up every man she encountered along the trail to demand cigarettes and whiskey.
I love her.
She made a return trip to Deadwood in time for the National Editorial Association's visit.
Mm-hmm.
Although initially the editor of the Deadwood Daily Pioneer Times had hoped to downplay Deadwood's Wild West image,
She was there to show it out, wasn't she?
Martha had been on the very train that many of the members of the association had traveled in on.
I love that for them.
A number of them had met her in the men's smoking car on their way into town.
I'm sure they did.
Apparently, they had a really great time with her, and they thought she was
Yeah. I bet she
wonderful.
was a delight when she was on.
Yeah. So the editor quickly changed his tune as soon as everybody from the association got to Deadwood. He was like, "She's a legend. Isn't she great?"
Well,
Like,
yeah, because I mean, he wants the favor to be for his town, so of course
yeah.
he's gonna do that.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I bet he was so upset that he had to
Yeah.
eat crow like that.
About 10 days before her passing, the famous photo of her standing alone at the fence that surrounds Wild Bill's grave was taken in July of 1903. After arriving in Terry, South Dakota, Martha was so drunk that the conductor, S.G. Tillett, had to carry her off the train himself before taking her to Callaway, where she was able to get a room.
She died in her sleep.
Close. Martha passed away at 5 p.m. on August 1st, 1903, at the age of 51 in Terry, South Dakota. Her death certificate notes that she died of, quote, inflammation of the bowels, end quote, and it's likely she also passed from pneumonia.
Could be cirrhosis, maybe, too.
Yeah, possibly. Her dying wish was to be buried next to her true love, Wild Bill, and her former employer, Madame Dufresne, honored her request, marking her final resting place with an urn.
That's so sweet.
Prior to her death, Martha had requested that the Society of Black Hills Pioneers handle her funeral arrangements, as they had been doing for the early settlers of the area for several years. F.X. Smith, a society member, personally traveled to Terry to oversee the transport of Martha's coffin back to Deadwood. Fun fact, when Martha's coffin was closed, it was closed by a man whom Martha had nursed back to health when he had been suffering from smallpox as a child.
That's so sad and so sweet.
Yeah. The members of the society were all highly respected individuals within the community, and certainly not the type of people who would choose to associate with, let alone drink, with Calamity Jane.
Fuck off.
But they did honor the request by planning an elaborate funeral for her, quote, in keeping with the generous life this woman led on the western frontier, end quote.
Yep.
It was the largest funeral in Deadwood ever held for a woman.
Good.
Her August 4th, 1903 funeral saw Deadwood packed with mourners and spectators alike, several in attendance being settlers who fondly recalled, quote, her acts of kindness when there was no other woman in the gulch, end quote.
That's awesome.
And although not religious, Martha's funeral took place at the Deadwood Methodist Church, where Reverend Charles B. Clark had the dubious honor of eulogizing a woman who was both well known for her acts of charity as well as her acts of brazen depravity.
Nice. I love that it's Methodist. Can I just say that? We were raised Methodist, and I feel like I don't want to say to me, it feels like the most kind of potluck church.
Yeah.
Where they just kind of let you in.
Yeah.
They let you in, they feed you a meal, tell you a story, and then they put you on your way. They're just hanging out. They're kind of looking out for each other, and they might share some stories about the Bible, but that's how the church was when we were raised.
Yeah.
It was more like a social gathering with a side of Jesus, and it was nice.
They're just kind of laid back, accepting of everyone, way different from the Methodists that kind of started.
Yes.
Methodism, or however you want to
Yeah.
call it, like, who were like very promiscuous and pretty outrageous party animals, I guess you could say. So they really kind of mellowed out over the years.
I just love
Uh,
that that's. I mean, I think
yeah,
of Methodists, I associate them with church basements.
yeah. Whereas before they were like having revivals under tents in like the woods and then getting wasted and having sex. So
Nice.
the day after her funeral, the Deadwood Daily Pioneer Times published a poem that George W. Hale had written in her honor. Quote, "No more wild oaths, no pistol crack, no games of death with mountain men. The Bronco and the dear old shack, I have no further use for them. My checks are in, the bank is closed. I've trailed the rugged mountainside. The draw did end as I supposed, shake paired across the big divide." End quote.
That's sweet.
Throughout her life, Martha took on a variety of odd jobs, such as cooking, cleaning, working in a dance hall, being a waitress, and working as a sex worker. It was noted in some places that she was married several times and gave birth not only to a daughter, but also to a son. Fun fact, she also never was a scout for the military, an officer of the law, or a Pony Express driver. Many
Amazing.
of these claims were made by William F. Buffalo Bill Cody in her autobiography, but he also admitted he didn't know much about her early life and confused several details surrounding it as well.
Yeah, because he was drunk too and
Yep.
probably lied a lot himself. I bet he shared
Yeah.
this at like his story with her.
Many places noted that she was 47 at the time of her death, which would mean that her date of birth was May 1st, 1856. This also meant that she would have been 11 to 12 years old at the time she had to assume the role of head of the household for herself and her siblings.
Which could be true.
Hmm. At some point, vandals stole the urn, and a replica of the original urn, which Madame Dufresne had placed there, was installed in 2004 with a small plaque that reads, quote, "Calamity Jane, Martha Jane Burke," end quote. And in regards to Jean Hickok Burkhart McCormick, this is her supposed daughter with Wild
Dang.
Bill. She was granted old age assistance on September 6, 1941, by the U.S. Department of Public Welfare after she produced evidence that her parents had married on the date of her birth at Benson's Landing in the Montana Territory.
How did she do that?
This would be proven to be a forgery.
I love her.
Jean would pass away on February 21st, 1951, at the age of 77, and be buried at Mount View Cemetery in Billings, Montana.
I love that she forged that. That's so funny.
I know. As for her siblings, I couldn't find any mention of what happened to them after their father passed. But I do know that her sister Lena went on to marry a man named John Gottlieb Borner. The couple had 3 children together: Tobias John in 1877, Hannah in 1880, and France Edward in 1885. Lena passed away in 1886 at the age of 26 or 27 and is buried at the North Fork Masonic Cemetery in Fremont County, Wyoming. Her brother Elijah went on to marry Catherine E. Kate Carson Doxford in 1895 when he was 33 and she was 15.
Gross. You'd be like your gross
Dad.
dad.
The couple had 1 child together, a son named Frank Elijah, who was born the following year in 1896. Elijah passed away on November 20th, 1922, at the age of 60 in Roosevelt, Utah, where he is buried at Roosevelt Memorial Park. And that is the supposed life and times of Calamity Jane.
I love that for her. I also really enjoy that we'll never know.
Yes. So if you want to learn more about her, there are several books that have been written about her that I'm sure are way more research than I was able to do for this episode.
Well, yeah, there's no way. In order to like do it properly, we would have episodes and we'd have like a month on her.
Yeah, and I would have had to like somehow get access to,
Hardcore deep dive.
yeah, like newspaper articles and who knows what else about her. But I think I did a good overview of her
I think
life.
so too.
If you love the show, the best way to support us is to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, Good Pods, Castbox, Podcast Addict, and or Audible. Links to all of these are in our show notes, or if you're already listening on one of these platforms, you know what to do.
Oh, and while you're at it, shoot us a question you'd like to hear us answer on the pod. We'll give you a special shout out and address your burning questions all at the same time. The weirder, the better. Submit them via link in our show notes or shoot them to us in our DMs.
We'd love to hear from you, and there's a couple of ways you can reach out to us. You can email us at yeoldecrimepodcast@gmail.com, where you can send us story ideas, share any spooky stories you may have, fun gifts, or even just to say hello.
You can also reach out to us via snail mail. Remember mail? Our mailing address is Ye Olde Crime Podcast, P.O. Box 341, Wyoming, Minnesota 55092. Fun fact, we like to send out thank you cards with fun stickers you can't get at our shop, so it's worth the cost of a stamp.
No podcast plug this week, but our listener question comes from Carrie Ann. So it's the witching hour on Halloween, and the veil between life and death is thin. You're hearing whispers from what you believe is the other side. What are they saying, and what will you do with this information?
I immediately went to one of our grandmothers. Because I don't know, I just have a feeling if anybody were to reach out to me, it would be her.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it would be something really nice, actually. I think it would probably be something very soft and sweet, and then something super funny and stupid. She would say something. Oh, that makes sense. I was like, why can't I think straight? My blood sugar is crashing during this podcast.
Oh no.
Yeah. So it's like, why can't words do good today? That's why. Okay. I think it would be our mother's mom.
Mm-hmm.
My immediate thought goes to her, and I think she would say something very beautiful and lovely about how great we're doing and how proud she is of us. But then she'd like say something really shitty where she could like catch us being mean to a cat or something.
Yeah.
And like she would tell us off for at least one thing,
Mm-hmm.
but she would say 4 really nice things. That's my initial thought. Because, like, I mean, witching hour, it could be a demon. Like, I know there's demons or something following me around. You know, like, there's got
Yeah.
to be some sort of devil on my back that's going to have some sort of snide remark. But you know who bullies that demon? My grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to bully that demon so she can get her words in quick. And then
Yep.
she'll probably, then her thing is letting the demon be mean to me afterwards.
Yeah.
I guess it's your turn.
She's like, I've done enough.
I said my piece. You can mess with her now.
Yeah. It would be our grandpa, so Dad's dad, and he would ask me why I never played the clarinet polka.
Oh my god. Amazing.
He always asked me to play it, and I never learned it. And I've always kind of felt like a dick for never learning it. And honestly, I could not pick up a clarinet and know how to read the music and play it now, even if I wanted to. I'd have to relearn how to play the clarinet and read sheet music. But yeah, I'm going to say that.
I love that we both just went, like, it wasn't scary at all. It's our relatives coming back and like saying the Midwestern guilt.
Yeah. Well, like, I don't know anyone else who would we be personally connected to where it would make sense for them to like reach out to us.
Mm-hmm.
I love how I went like literally or like realistically with this.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, because we've experienced spooky things in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense to me that it would be somebody I know. You know what I bet it would be for you? You know what I want it to be? Is the little girl in the attic.
Oh, yeah. That would be a good one.
Yeah, and she'd be like, hey, you're doing pretty great.
Sorry I knocked over your Barbie. Your collector Barbie.
It's just the Barbie like floating into your house. It's like an apology. Like a new one.
It was the 1989 holiday Barbie.
But she tried to blame it on me because that was the year I was born.
She's wearing like a white dress with like a white shawl type thing, a fur shawl, and she had a white muff, which is something that you would put your hands in, not like something gross, you perverts. So
a hand warmer.
A hand warmer, yes. Instead of like gloves or mittens. What's something good you'd like to share?
I got a haircut and I feel good.
I was going to say your hair looks shorter.
Yeah. But it was that type of like long where this could be it, you know? Like it's still not super bad, but like
I need to get my hair cut. I've been meaning to do it. I don't want to cut too much off just so I have stuff for people to use at the wedding, but like I wouldn't mind taking, 2 or 3 inches off.
I went to my collarbone, and just so people at home know, it was to my butt.
Yeah, your hair was super long.
My hair was super, super long. It was at least to my belly button. No, I have a haircut and it feels really good, and I'm in that spot where like I can't wait to wash it myself. You know how that is? Like it's really nice when they style it, but I like my hair expands because of the humidity. So I'm really just excited to see how curly it gets. That's my good thing. I got a haircut and I feel pretty. How about you? What's one good thing?
We went to Pride for the first time this past weekend.
Yay!
Thomas says that we went at some point. I don't remember ever going to Pride, but it was really good. Governor Walz was the Grand Marshal. It was really nice, and my youngest wants to go back next year. So, all right. Shall we?
Let's do it.
We wouldn't be here without support from listeners like you. If you're interested in supporting us financially, you can leave a one-time or monthly donation over on Buy Me a Coffee or our Venmo page. Links are in the show notes. And we make a point of reaching out to send you a thank you note and stickers to show our appreciation.
Want to show your support in a more concrete way? Pick up some Yield Crime merch over at our TeePublic shop. We shout out whenever there is a sale each month, and we work to make sure we're creating new designs and changing it up whenever possible. And hey, thanks for listening.
And on that note, as always, I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Maddie.
And we'll see you next time with another tale
as old as crime.